Well, hey, welcome to 5 Plus. I'm Joe Ellison. We have Morgan Wrigley here and our special guest, Lori Wood. Now, the first Friday in February marks National Wear Red Day. That's why we're all up here in these red colors. It's to raise awareness about the leading cause of death for women, which is heart disease.
Yeah, and like Joe mentioned, we have Lori Wood here today to share her story of just how fast heart disease can hit women. And Lori, can you take us back to that moment when you first realized something was wrong? You went to the doctor. What symptoms were you experiencing?
I first thought I just had the flu or something like that because I don't have any family history and I didn't have any risk factors for heart disease. And they took a chest x-ray and found an extremely enlarged heart and told me that I had end-stage heart failure and my heart was functioning at 6%. But the symptoms that I had all those years were so small and so insignificant that I just didn't know they were heart related.
So a lot of times, I mean, these can come out of nowhere for women then. So what do women need to do to make sure that they're staying on top of this so they don't miss those small things?
Yes, I think it's key to share anything that you think is not right for you, even if for me, it felt like I was complaining too much or it was a little bit embarrassing, like I was out of shape. But those are the things that the medical professionals can put together and make a diagnosis where on our own we can't. Because mine were things like shortness of breath and difficulty with inclines and inability to exercise. And I was almost embarrassed to share those. But when we do, someone who knows more can take that and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah. So when you get that diagnosis, what happens next? What were your next steps?
Yes. So I had medical care here in Northwest Arkansas, and I was also flown to Cleveland Clinic, and they put me on some high potent medications, and I'm still on all of those. I wore an external defibrillator for 9 months, and then I got an internal device. And I have just been living with the limitations and the uncertainty really of heart disease for 9 years. But my heart now is functioning at 20%, and I just make the adjustments to my day that I need to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And today, whenever you see people out wearing red and others see them, what do they need to say? What conversation needs to be had to sort of keep the conversation going about heart disease in women?
Yes, I think it's important to know that for women 20 years and older, almost half of them have some form of cardiovascular disease, which to me seemed extremely high because we think of it as a man's disease. But if you can see someone wearing red, that just reminds us all that it's our #1 killer for women. And it puts it on the radar and it makes you more aware of the symptoms that you might be experiencing in your own body.
Yeah, absolutely.
And after this happened to you, you kind of took the initiative to get involved in education and just spreading awareness about this. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with that?
Yes, so I do work with the American Heart Association, and I also do work with an organization called Women Heart. And mostly what I do is just try to spread education because I think for me, it was just a lack of knowing that it was something important. And we all know that, and especially with heart failure, the earlier the diagnosis, the better the outcome. And I think that's true for everything that's serious with us. So I just try to get out there and show the different symptoms and the things that women can do because we are always taking care of everyone else, and so it's important for us to take care of ourselves as well.
Absolutely. And what is the best place where people can go to sort of learn, to be educated about this, to know what questions to ask, and just to find out more of the things that they need to know about their own bodies?
Yeah, so the American Heart Association has a great program called Go Red for Women, and they have very thorough, credible, scientific-backed information for women at all stages of life that I think is super helpful for anyone that has questions. They can just go online to the American Heart Association website and get information that can help them.
Awesome.
And one thing that's unique about your story, and maybe should kind of sound some alarm bells for other people, is that you had no risk factors. So I'm sure that this was not even on your radar. What would you say to people about that?
Yes. So you're right. I had no risk factors. I had no family history. And, you know, I was always worried about cancer, maybe car wrecks, but never heart disease. And I think the difference is there's so many diseases and so many symptoms to be aware of, diabetes, everything that we need to be aware of. I think the main thing is just know when something's different. If something is different, tell your doctor, and maybe they'll just say it's nothing, and that'd be great. But maybe it's part of something bigger. And so to just be aware that if something's changing with you, someone needs to know about that.
Absolutely. And where can, other women, other people go to hear stories like yours?
Yes, there's a lot of testimonies, there's a lot of programs within the American Heart Association where people will share their different heart diseases and different cardiovascular situations, and you'll find one that relates to what you're going through if you have a new diagnosis.
And how, with your journey, how did this affect your family personally? I bet it was a hard time.
Yes, it was. It was a difficult time because whenever there's a serious diagnosis, it affects everyone in the family, not just the patient. And so there was a lot of things that had to adapt with my husband, and I still had children at home. And so it affected them because my daughter was a senior in high school, and she went through all of this with me, which I didn't want her to, but now we have that closer connection, and she understands the limitations that I have better than my older children do.
As a parent, a lot of times I think we try to shield them a lot, right? We don't want them to know, and I'm sure they were very worried for you. So I think it's that early detection. It's what we've got to latch on to.
Yeah.
Yes.
And since that all happened, what were some lifestyle changes that you had to make?
One of the big ones that affects me is fatigue. So I have to get a lot of sleep sometime during the day. And so I've really had to adjust my day, and it's shortened kind of on both ends and make the most of it in the middle. We've also had to do a lot of adjustments dietary. We thought we were eating really well, and we kind of were. I was cooking, making meals at home, but what I wasn't being careful about was sodium. And that's a hard one because everything has sodium. And we've just really learned how to cook all over again, but it's been worth it, and it's kept me alive. When I was first diagnosed, they were saying 5 years, and I'm 9 years into this heart failure. So it's worth it to do what you need to do.
Absolutely. And if there's just one thing that you could tell people that you want them to take from this interview and this time here with us, what would that be?
I think it would be to listen to the people that love you, because sometimes we don't see changes in ourselves as much as our spouse might see, or our children, or our parents. So if someone that loves you tells you that something doesn't seem right, then listen to them and go to the doctor and get that on someone's radar.
Absolutely. All right. So whenever you see people out there wearing red today, you'll know why. If you want to throw on the color red as well, that way you can keep the conversation going. And certainly check out the American Heart Association, their website, to get all that information that you need, things maybe that you didn't know. Thank you so much, Lori, for being here with us and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us here on 5 Plus. We hope you have a great day.